Hello and welcome to the second part of full DUIK 15 overview, and today I'm gonna tell you about Automation tab. So, the first button is Wiggle. It adds wiggle effect to any selected property. It may be scale, for instance. And DUIK is asking us if we want to separate dimensions. I say yes, to get more animation control. As you see, an effect applied, and we got two sliders. They set amplitude and frequency of wiggle. Next button, called Swing. It creates sinusoid animation, which you can adjust. Let's select Position property. Push Swing and, as you see, star is starting to move from left to right, using sinusoid without any keyframes. You can adjust amplitude, frequency, offset and damping as well. Pretty nice little animation. Spring button is widely used by motion designers feature. I'll demonstrate you how it works with this green star. Here we have standard boring animation. I'll go ahead, select my keyframes and push button spring. DUIK offered two types of spring, simply and advanced. First one requires keyframes, while advanced needs parent animated layer. I select Simply Spring, and here it is. There are two parameters to adjust: elasticity and damping. Trigger speed using to fix some bugs with CC15 version of After Effects. I'll show you a little trick. I'll delete effect for now, in order to create bounce instead of rope effect. We should select separate dimensions in context menu. I'll go ahead and animate Y dimension only, then select it and apply spring. Now you see secret checkbox bounce, and that's simply spring. Let's take a look at advanced algorithm. I have created this nice star animation, and let's say the second star will follow green star and have no animation. I'll paint it red, make them parent, here we go. We have green star animated and the red star is following green. Select Parent Layer and hit Spring Advanced Radio button. Let's see if it works. It works pretty well. As you see, Position property for the red star now animating too, and it is bouncing. I decrease value to see difference. OK. Blink effect creates animation without keyframes. It is very similar to loop between two hold keyframes. Can be applied to any property with clock stopwatch. Here is example of position and opacity blink. Orient to path. I got this nice green star moving along curve path. Select layer and push button. Now star changes its rotation depending on path curvature. This is exactly if you delete expressions created by DUIK and with your layer selected, click Ctrl plus Alt plus O and select Orient to path. You'll get same result in both cases. Wheel tool allows you to create automatically rotated wheels. Here we got our green star moving along the hills. And it should rotate when move across surface. Select wheel layer and push button. It offers us two types of movement. Horizontal, that works good when you animate wheel moving on the straight line. And curves, that is just like in our case. DUIK needs wheel radius and we can measure it using DUIK Measure tool. If I click Measure, now it shows me an error warning. We need second layer to measure distance in between. Create null object, center anchor point and place it at the edge of the star. Then, with both layers selected, press Measure. We see a result of 101 pixels in the radius window. Select Curved Radio button and press Wheel. Now that I'm dragging cursor, the rotation property animates automatically. The advantage of that method is that if I need to change my animation, I won't deal with rotation at all. It is calculating automatically depending on how position is changing. Lens effect creates custom lens flare using selected layers. Here on screen you see 5 layers, which I am going to combine into flare. First you need to select center layer. It may be any layer or null object. Then select other layers in any order and press Lens Flare button. Now when I rotate my first selected layer, all layers behave like lens flare caught by camera. You can adjust intensity and scale of the flares.
Как видите, настраивать интенсивность ее, масштаб. Следующий эффект Move Away. Например, у нас есть
Move away. Let's say there is a man magnetized by this little pretty woman. We can animate his movement to her by setting keyframes as usual.
допустим, через Position. А можно
Or by pressing Move Away button. Doing that, we got one slider effect, and here we go. Man is now moving right to his woman.
параметры у вас мужчина будет всегда двигаться женщине. Судя по всему,
I suppose the effect is using anchor point, so when I change it by dragging with Pan tool, our man will move to new anchor point position.
анимации, соответственно, он будет уже тянуться к этому anchor point.
Distance link. Distance link changes selected property depending on distance. There we have our man and other pretty secretary. And we want to change man's scale automatically when he moves next to woman. Select property to animate. It will be scale in our case. Then select woman. Hit distance link and the deed is done. Now when I'm dragging man next to woman, its scale is changing. I will increase minimum distance to see difference more clearly.
Чуть-чуть добавим. Теперь более наглядно. Следующий эффект Exposure.
Exposure.
Такую анимацию. И применим сюда.
We have 25 frames per second in our composition. And what exposure does is change selected animation frame rate, leaving composition frame rate unchanged. I'm selecting desired keyframes and pressing exposure button. DUIK offers two methods of changing frame rate: fixed and adaptive. Adaptive imitates changes of velocity depending on velocity of selected keyframes.
Такой продвинутый. Используем фикс.
I will use fixed and set frame rate to 8.
Сколько будет? Допустим, 8 сделаем. И теперь вы видите,
Now you see that movement looks twitch and posterized while I'm decreasing value.
сейчас она 1 к 1.
Paint rigging lets you change stroke animation with one controller.
Строков сразу с одного контроллера. Открываем слой.
Double-click on new solid layer and paint anything. Really doesn't matter what it is. Let's say this smile face. Now select solid and select custom strokes, press paint rigging button. And now when I'm dragging end effect value, you see that it reveals all strokes at a time. You can set diameter as well.
Можно покрутить диаметр.
Paint group is very similar to paint rigging. The difference is that you can select group of strokes to animate, while other strokes will leave unchanged. I delete previous example. Now select these strokes, press Paint Group, and as you see, I can change its properties independently. You can now change its color and diameter as well.
Независимо от других строков. Следующий
Randomize lets you randomly change properties for several layers.
причем не только
You
параметры.
can also change its in and out points.
Здесь в настройках можно выбрать.
Let's change these sliders and apply effect.
Здесь покрутим параметры. видите, что
You see, script made its work and randomly shifted in points of selected layers. I undo it for now.
также можно сделать.
Let's see what happens when we apply it to position property.
Допустим, выберем position.
When I press Randomize, script moves them randomly across. By the way, you can change default value of 100 pixels by typing your number. Let's say 300 for instance.
Time remap.
The last effect, called time remap. It does exactly what its name says. It remaps time. Here I got this video in the timeline. Usually we press Ctrl plus Alt plus T to activate time remapping. Now you just have to select layer and press button. It asks us if we want layer to be looped. I say yes, and as you see, when I increase composition time by pressing Ctrl plus key shortcut, you see now our video has extra length and it is looped. Let's take a look how it works when I loop composition. Let it end there. Let's pre-compose it and select created layer. Then press time remap. Additional keyframe has created and loop out expression written down in the time remap effect. Now my animation looped. That's all for now. Feel free to donate via PayPal. Collected money will cover next part of translation.
Также ставьте лайки, пишите свои комментарии, о чем бы вы хотели видеть следующее видео, и на все комментарии я постараюсь дать оперативный ответ. Вступайте в нашу группу ВКонтакте «Как это сделать в After Effects», и вы станете настоящими гуру анимации. Пока!